Talent trees. As a longtime World of Warcraft player of 16 years, talent trees are the cornerstone of all player and class customization. For everyone who watches me on twitch.tv/Vlhadus Gaming would tell you, I am a very passionate person when it comes to class design and talent tree systems. Today I want to talk about the current talent tree design of Ashes of Creation, give you guys my feedback on what I like, what I dislike, and my thoughts on how we could revamp and improve the talent tree system overall for new players and upcoming players. Let's get into it. So let's talk about the talent tree visually. It's a mess. I've talked to so many people about the mage, fighter, and ranger talent trees and haven't heard anyone really say anything positive about the ability and passive talent tree. I know people are going to say in the comments, but Vlhadus, this is a work in progress. Nothing is final. Why are you being so critical on a system that's going to change anyway? Well, now is the best time to leave this kind of feedback. In my opinion, the foundation of the talent system is flawed. Why would I wait till the house is built for me to say later that it isn't good? Now is the perfect time to give Intrepid and any class designer this kind of feedback so we can start the system off on the right foot. Okay, so back to visuals. The fighter talent tree showcases 18 abilities and 14 passive skills. We know from what Steven has told us that every primary archetype will have anywhere between 30 to 40 abilities. What you are seeing now is 32 options in this tree. What happens if this tree keeps going? We will have a pretty massive tree in our hands. We're talking over 100 options in both abilities and passives potentially. Let's take a look at the newest talent tree from the latest Bard showcase. This tree has 26 active skills and 8 passives if you include the masteries. This tree is more concise, however, it lacks the customization completely for abilities. Better on the visual aspect, but lacking on customization. I will say as an honorable mention that the Bard masteries are completely amazing and do add to the class kit in terms of customization. Now, I want to bring an example of an RPG that did abilities and passives very well and wasn't overwhelming to new players. I bring you Last Epoch. I know Last Epoch isn't an MMO, but we're just talking about talent tree systems in this video, and I believe this is a very good baseline and it's easy to understand and gives tons of options for customization for players to experiment with. I feel like if we keep this current design, we are either going to have very little in terms of ability customization or Path of Exile levels of talent trees for archetypes. Now, taking inspiration from Last Epoch and knowing that we're working with an MMORPG, I made an example of what this kind of tree can look like in Ashes of Creation. This is a more linear progression path of unlocking abilities by your character level. However, in my opinion, you aren't locked to selecting a minimum number of abilities to move on to the next tier. If you want 2 skills in the first threshold, you can do that. As you can see, there are only abilities in this tree with 3 masteries on the right hand side. Where are the passives? So let's say you hit level 12 and you want Cataclysm as an ability. Let's click on the Cataclysm ability and a new passive tree comes on the screen. You can then combine the passive tree with the upcoming augment system when you hit level 25. The large icon is the base Cataclysm ability with 3 options to go from the start, 5 options of passives in total. You will also notice there are multiple levels to the passive nodes. There are a total of 15 points you can dump into just Cataclysm alone. There is a finite amount of talent points, so choose wisely on what you select. Let's look at the passive node Unearth Cataclysm. You see the base ability on the top and the passive ability on the bottom. What I love about customizing and talent systems is cross interactions with base archetype abilities. You will notice a couple of things, that this ability has synergies with other fighter abilities such as Leap Strike, Maim, and Rupture. The other thing you may notice is a capstone bonus passive. If you want to max a certain node passive, you should be rewarded for doing so. Maybe not all the time, but when it's meant to from a design perspective. Now let's look at another ability. Exert only has 3 passive nodes with 10 points you can dump into. I want to be very clear that I don't want huge passive trees, and I think 3 to 5 passive nodes will be enough customization for certain abilities. The next thing I want to discuss, and this won't take very long, but I wanted to say something about the new Bard mastery system. I love this idea and really hope every base archetype has masteries that players can play with and customize their gameplay even more so with their characters. I think this brings something to look forward to, and which is why I made each mastery on the fighter locked behind certain level breaks. But let's look at an example of what a fighter mastery could look like. The thing I want to bring home is how masteries can change how you play your class, and that is an amazing thing. Now, talking about the Bard, the counterpoint and crescendo mechanics look like so much fun. The dance masteries are there to complement some abilities, which is totally fine, and I think it's a great combination. Again, great addition to the trees, and I hope they make a home for all base archetypes in Ashes of Creation. The next thing I want to discuss is talent point allocation by leveling and the universal talent tree. We could have potentially 200 talent points to spend leveling from 1 to 50. Here's a quote from Steven talking about earning talent points.
How are skills acquired during leveling? Can you walk through like how that
That's a great.
functionality will work?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of games in the past we've kind of a lot of games in the past that we've played have this kind of skill point allocation system that you acquire through experience gain, and you take those skill points and you spec them into your skill tree. We're going to follow a relatively similar path when it comes to skill progression. However, that's likely not going to be tied directly to experience gain, because we do have this concept of experience debt that does accrue, and we don't want to create an imbalance between skill points acquired versus experience. So we're going to predicate your skill acquisition, the skill points acquisition, based on benchmarks you reach when leveling through a level, right? So these are going to be at specific points in the level, like, 1/4 progress to half progress to 3/4 progress. You're going to get an influx of skill points, and then you'll be able to allocate them into your skill tree.
With potentially 200 points to play with in the current talent tree design, where are you going to spend these points? With 30 to 40 abilities and minimum passive options, you're going to be able to max out that tree. That's where I also need to talk about the universal talent system. Now, we haven't seen this talent system, and we do know some things about it. It will be an across-the-board tree that all primary archetypes can use to increase things like active blocking, sprinting, and active dodging. A really good example that I have in my head is something like classic World of Warcraft with that talent tree. You have multiple passive node options you can select, and it's pretty basic customization. However, you need to create a very robust and sizable tree to not be able to select all primary archetype abilities and a good majority of universal skills. I would also add more passive options like major waterfall stats, movement speed, mount speed, resistances, etc. in the universal talent system. Since it will be just passives, I feel like if you follow the weapon talent tree model for the universal tree, it will be fine. You can always look at the WoW talent tree model as well for an example. So to recap, here are the pros and cons lists for both talent systems, the current model and the one I designed. I feel like Intrepid has had multiple iterations of talent trees that have been experimenting with, and I really just want more customization without being overwhelming like PoE, which is Path of Exile, and visually pleasing and not confusing. Again, speaking to people in the Ashes community, many people want deeper customization, and many, including myself, believe that the augment system isn't going to be enough customization for classes. The base passives for archetypes need to have different, meaningful options with multiple interactions between abilities and maybe some capstone bonuses as well. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know what you think about my revamped talent tree for Ashes of Creation down in the comments. What do you want from abilities, passives, and augments? I really can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts on this, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care.